can see all the riders now getting set on the grid. Ogden on pole position, Seabright's in second, and Jack Hart on the front row of the grid in that number 10 machine. So now just waiting for the grid to be cleared, and now we just wait for the lights for the opening race of the 2019 British Talent Cup. Ogden's on pole on the 4. He's gotten away slowly. Seabright with a great start on the number 22 machine as the field heads down in towards turn 1 at Copse. It looks like it's Seabright that's trying to get down the inside, but the number 4 of Ogden holds on to the lead through the opening corner of the season.
Yeah, you can see Ogden, it looked like he was going to get really bogged down there, but actually brought it back by the time they tipped in there, and it's Seabright who didn't. Oh, he's made a move already though. Yeah,
Seabright down the inside into Maggots, down in towards Beckett's now for these riders. There's a big bump in the middle of the track here that the riders are going to have to try and navigate. You can see at the front of the field though, Ogden able to get himself back in front on the number 4 machine, just in front of the 22 of Seabright, but a problem there for what looked like it could have been one of the front runners in these early stages. But you can see at the front of the field, Ogden under attack down in towards Brooklands. You can try and make some moves into these sections for all of the riders, but it looks like everyone's been able to get through this opening lap pretty much unscathed down in towards Luffield, and Ogden still out in front.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit more organised there at the front now after that huge array of lines we saw at the start. But yeah, Ogden obviously not getting that best start, but now seems back in control of it. Seabright though not wasting any time trying to attack again. It looks like he's going to try and get him back already.
Yeah, the number 7 of Charlie Atkins trying to get down the inside as well. He's down into the lead there on the number 7. Good move from Atkins, and just in front of Seabright and Ogden. But the one thing about all these riders in the British Talent Cup, you can stay together as a pack, and it really is a case of over the course of 28 laps trying to just survive the early stages. You can see how dangerous it can get down in towards some of these tighter sections on the opening laps of the field, right there together, and lots of changes at the front. It looks like Ogden has lost a couple of spots there with Seabright still out in front, and then the number 23 of Cam Horseman up in second spot.
Yeah, you can see just getting absolutely swamped there, Scott Ogden, and it's allowed those two to get a tiny little bit of daylight behind them there. But Seabright still looking fairly racy. Obviously wants the lead of this race. Maybe he thinks he's got the pace to pull away a little bit, but at the moment all pretty chaotic there, and no one seems to be able to really get the hammer down and start making a move to pull away.
Yeah, we'll need for all these riders, just try and get through these opening couple of laps. See if you can get yourself into a pack to try and break away at the front. The number 10 there of Jack Hart, he's done well from the front row. It's great to be able to hold on to those top 3 spots. But as they come across the line, you can see the number 22 of Seabright trying to get down the inside into Copse. All changed down in towards turn 1, and it is the number 23 of the number 22 of Seabright out in front there from Horseman. But you can see just how easy it is to lose a couple of spots in these early stages of the race. All that the riders have to do at this stage of the race, Fran, try and keep yourself calm, try and make sure that you're avoiding any of those big mistakes.
Yeah, essentially you just have to be in this front group to stay in contention, as always in these kind of races. Just got to be somewhere in there, not making too many errors, like you said, not getting swamped by too many people. But great start from Cameron Horseman. Obviously we said he was super fast in testing, was actually down on the 3rd row for this race, so to already be up there, a good start from him.
Yeah, Horseman on the 23, a few top 10 finishes last season in the British Talent Cup, including top 4 finishes at Assen and the season ender in Valencia. So these larger tracks, the Grand Prix tracks, they've suited him, and the end of the lap here at Silverstone very much the same as the Grand Prix circuit. So maybe Horseman just coming into his own in these opening couple of laps. But you can see at the front of the field, the big thing for all these riders, just try and work together, try and break away, try and make this pack a little bit smaller, because as you can see there with the 15 of Rhys Irwin in the background, a lot of times you try and make the moves to try and just separate a little bit of the field there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You start off with a group of a whole grid essentially, and then you just got to try and whittle it down to a group where you think you can fight it out for them, or if you think you can break away and you've got the pace to do that. Ooh, getting pretty fruity in there.
Yeah, you can see there the number 23 of Cam Horseman and also the number 10 of Jack Hart is able to get through into the lead of this race. But the number 4 of Ogden, he keeps himself into those kind of positions to be able to try and make some moves. So in these early stages of the race, that's the key thing for all these riders, just to make sure that you're able to survive the early points and just try and get yourself into a position to try and attack any of the riders around you. You can see number 10 of Jack Hart continuing to lead here, but this leading group, it can all change very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Scott Ogden, not too crazy anything at the moment, just keeping himself in there, like you said, and just seeming nice and relaxed. Maybe Seabright seemed a little bit overly eager, you could say, to get the lead in the first lap. But now we seem to have relaxed a little bit, and you can see there are some groups now starting to form as we head over for lap 5.
Yeah, Cam Horseman on the 23 gets himself into the front down in towards Copse. And for all these riders now, the big thing is try and work together, because as you can see, the group is starting to splinter. We've got all the way down to Rhys Irwin on that number 15 machine in 6th. But all these riders starting just to spread out a little bit at the front of the field. You can see the front 6 all working against one another in this section of the track. They're costing each other a bit of time through there. They're just trying to trip over one another through that section down in towards into Maggots and Beckett's. but very easy to lose a lot of time through there, and in these early stages of the race that can cost you any of the momentum that you've had.
Yeah, I think you could visually see that daylight come down then when they all started suddenly attacking each other in that front group. And like you say, that'll just slow them up and then allow the guys behind them to just tag back onto that group, which obviously, if they don't quite have the pace, is a really big help to be part of that group and seeing them fighting.
And number 2 down, that's Jake Nixon. Nixon was actually fastest in one of the practice sessions. He's down on what looks to be the entry into Luffield, so we'll see if we can get a replay of that. But for Jake, he's had a pretty solid start to the season, but now down and out here from round 1, and you can see the rest of the race still going on without him, and difficult for any of the young riders whenever that happens. But for at the front of the field, you can see once again the riders all trying to attack one another on the way into Copse. Keep an eye out here for the number 2 of Jake Nixon. We should just see him there just losing that front through Brooklands down in towards Luffield, and out of this race we saw him trying to rejoin, but he's all the way down the order, and on such a short lap here, just having given up all that time, he's probably the best part of a lap down now. At the front of the field though, it is the number 10, Jack Hart, leading the way, but under attack once again from Scott Ogden. Ogden on that number 4, fast all the way through this weekend, but he's kept his powder dry so far in the opening quarter of this race.
Yeah, definitely, and it is always a heartbreaker for these guys, especially so early in race 1 to find yourself sliding out. But at least we do have another race tomorrow, so we'll try and reset for that, and he looked okay, so that's the main thing. But yeah, this fight at the front now, you can see they've really been able to make that gap now, this top little group. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting now if they can make sure they don't slow each other up and really make that break and make sure it's a smaller fight for the podium, obviously helping the odds for each one of them.
Yeah, Charlie Farrar getting himself to the front of the field. He's the oldest rider in the field, the Sunderland native, and he's had a few top 10 finishes last season, but just as good as we've seen him in the British Time Cup. But under attack down in towards Maggots and overtaken down in towards the fast section at the start of this lap, but always lap after lap we're seeing that run from Copse down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. That's the favourite overtaking opportunity for all these riders. Jack Hart hitting the front once again on that number 10 machine, and he's just in front of the 19 of Farrar. And you can see as the field come down in towards Brooklands, this front 5 have started to really edge themselves away from the rest of the group. And for all these riders now, this is the opportunity for them just to try and stretch out a bit of a lead. You can see Rhys Irwin down the inside of Ogden. Rhys Irwin on that number 15, as good as we've seen from the Derry man.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, it looks like if these guys, if there's no real drama and they don't seriously start beating each other up, they look like they do definitely have that pace to, obviously they have pulled away and now to manage to stay in a bit of clear air. But it's pretty brutal in that fight at the front, considering we're not even, well, we're just over a third of the way through this race pretty much, and already kind of final lap territory, some of these moves. Like, everyone needs to just take a little bit of a deep breath and realise that whatever your chances at the podium may be, or whatever you think they are, you have to still be in it by the end to get that shot at it.
Yeah, no chance of deep breath. It's elbows out and try and send it down the inside. You can see there for all these riders through this section of the lap, there's a big bump in the middle of the track just at that point for the riders. It's very easy to get the bike on settled. You can gain some momentum by trying to hold that outside line, and you can see with Scott Ogden on number 4 trying to gain momentum down in towards Brooklands, not quite able to make the move down in towards Brooklands. And you can see all the riders now just fanning down in towards the left-hander before the end of the lap. At this stage of the race, Fran, though, how much are you thinking in terms of the strategy for the end of this race? Are you just trying to set up moves, trying to think about what's going to happen in 20 laps time, or are you just trying to make sure that you're surviving, getting yourself to the front of the group?
I should imagine with these guys at the moment it's more focused on that. Obviously, the first race of the season as well, it's not just about like, okay, so now I'm a seasoned competitor and I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I know this venue like the back of my hand. Obviously, some of them will have more experience than others here, but at the moment it seems pretty frantic out there still, and it's more about just that tussle and fighting it out. But it does appear that that second group have made a little bit more ground again on those guys, and yeah, you can see it's just tightening up again a little bit, and they're certainly not helping themselves with this 2x2 around each corner. Yeah,
tripping up over each other down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. You can see at the front of the field though, Horseman's still able to get himself out to the front of this field, but as you said, Fran, all this fighting, all it's doing is bringing back in the rest of the field, and at the back of that group is Charlie Atkins, the 16-year-old from Scunthorpe on the number 7 machine, and all that's happening is that front 10 just getting themselves closed right up again. Just as you fight, you've cost each other a lot of time, and these Moto 3 bikes, it really is a case of any loss of time, any loss of momentum can be absolutely penalising for them. At the front of the field though, it is still Charlie Farrar out in front, but under attack once again here from Jack Hart and also from a host of other riders.
was the third group has now become the second group, and even those guys are getting a little bit closer. We've got some of the field, it's sort of the top 12 who are really, sorry, 13, who are pretty much all together-ish now, although there is a bit of a gap there. It seems to be changing almost corner by corner as these guys keep shuffling at the front.
Yeah, at the front of the field, you can see for the first time in a long time, no one trying to make the move down in towards Maggots. You can see riders just trying a couple of different lines through Beckett, so they are trying to think their way through this race, try and understand exactly where they need to be. And talking to a lot of these riders yesterday, the one thing they said was when the field's as close as it is, and there was only 1/10 of a second separating most of the front runners in practice and qualifying, when it's as close as this, it's very easy just to get tripped up into a battle with one another, cost yourself a bit of time, and struggle to try and make up that time once again. But as long as the front runners are all fighting with one another, you should be able to try and use that just to try and open up a little bit of a gap. You can see Horsman on the 23 consistently finding a way to get himself to the front of that group.
Yeah, definitely Horsman, and then Ogden in there as well, pretty near the front. You can see just tucked into third there. But yeah, you can see now this is pretty much a freight train all the way now down to 13th position. 2.2 seconds covering them, but the gaps are not that big between the two little clusters of riders. So this could get very interesting soon. But obviously, if they do realise that and there are a few able to break away, then those guys behind, it looks like they probably don't have the pace to keep up with them on their own. But it could be an interesting one, especially given how frantic this is. I think this is actually closer now on lap 11 than it was on lap 2.
Yeah, and you can see with Ogden on the number 4 just trying to get that run around the outside of the leaders, and as you said, Fran, really close action here at the front of the field. That's what you want in the British Talent Cup. You want to be able to see whether or not riders can really race with one another. Ogden for the first time today trying to hit the front on the number 4 down the inside into Brooklands. We've seen him try and set that move up a few times. This time he actually manages to make the move stick. So Ogden, he's been one of the pace setters all the way through this weekend. Pole man as well, and he's now hit the front.
Yeah, nicely done that, and not too much time lost, it would seem. And Seabright in this group, obviously at the start he seemed very, very eager to hit the front as quickly as possible. Now seems a little bit more content to just sit in this group as it starts to fight it out. But yeah, Ogden and Horseman both definitely looking extremely confident at the moment at the front, and always in that top 3, and just some position switching, but nothing too crazy from those guys. It seems they seem pretty relaxed.
Yeah, you can see down in towards Maggots and Beckett's now. It's still the 23 Horseman getting himself to the front of the field, but is he going to come under attack now? The 19 trying to get down the inside. That's Charlie Farrar, the oldest man in the field. And for these riders now, you can see it really is a case of them all starting to get the gloves off now, get the elbows out, and we're still only at 1/3 distance. So for all these riders, still lots of racing left to happen here. But you can see as they fan out down in towards Brooklands, Ogden trying to get in the brakes late on that number 4 to hold on to that race lead, but everyone else trying to just get down the inside, trying to unsettle the riders around them, and now just trying to run around the outside of each other. Big crash in the background, and 2 riders down through Luffield. And you can see there, it looked like that could have been Seabright that went down as one of those riders. So Seabright's been up at the front of the field all the way through this race. It looks like it could be him down, and also the number 3 there that you can see, that's Elliot Pinson. But for all the riders now trying to just get through this race, because Fran, that's the perfect example of what can happen whenever riders start to trip over one another.
Exactly, and there's no real need. Obviously, you know, everyone wants to be in that front group, everyone wants a chance at the win or the podium. There's no need for that kind of crazy shuffling really at that point in the race. But I think it was Seabright, like you said, he seems to have disappeared off the timing screens. You could certainly see the surname on the leather started with an S, so that is a real shame for him.
You're more eagle-eyed than me if you could spot that, Fran. But you can see down in towards Luffield, it's actually the number 3 of Elliot Pinson just runs into the back of Seabright, and Seabright with nowhere to go and no fault of his own, but out of this race down in towards Luffield, as you can see, just skittled by another rider. But Fran, that really does just illustrate perfectly just how easy it is to get yourself caught out.
Definitely, and obviously, like we said, through no fault of his own. Mistakes happen, obviously. Unfortunately, it's part of racing, especially at this level when they're trying to learn how to race as well as just, you know, go racing and win. But Seabright, yeah, a bit of a heartbreak of him, obviously, a veteran and now on the floor.
Yeah, and you can see there, he does at least have the reaction of a typical rider then after an incident like that, throwing his hands to the sky, stalks off.
I expect a full stoner at Jerez next time round, just clapping whoever's involved in that as well.
Well, luckily for everyone else involved, Elliot Pinson also out of this race as well.
Yeah.
So
well, maybe not so lucky if they're down there close to each other.
We should see them at one stage or another down on track together through the course of this season. But it does just show in the British Talent Cup how easy it is to have those kind of incidents. We're only at the halfway stage of this race. Looks like everyone's just got a little bit too much adrenaline in the early stages, trying to make their way to the front of this group. But in a 28-lap race, it really is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ironically, the next thing I was about to say before that crash happened was they need to calm down a bit here because 4 into 1 does not go. And then that happened. So obviously, yeah, it happens in racing. They've got another shot at it tomorrow, but you can see it's really split this group up again at the front, that skittle effect. You can see a little bit of daylight, so it'll be interesting to see if those guys are able to tag back onto this front group, which again is headed by Horseman and Ogden.
Yeah, and if last year's anything to go by, it's consistency that really was the hallmark for Rory Skinner en route to his championship. So losing points in these early races can really penalise you quite a lot. But you can see down in towards turn 1 for the first time in a long time, riders not actually trying to make the move into cops.
Yeah, all pretty calm there. I think maybe that incident's hopefully calms some nerves a little bit. But yeah, definitely these four now look, well, again, you see I say it and they immediately prove me wrong. Another couple of moves in that corner all at one go.
Yeah, Scott Swan just hitting the front there on the number 20 machine. And for Scott Swan, of course, the Northern Irish rider, last year he raced in this class as well, and now just getting himself to the front of that group, although it was only momentarily, but trying to get down the inside once again there for Scott Swan. So the number 20 just trying to make himself a bit wider on the way into Brooklands there, just trying to get himself down the inside. But for these 5 riders, there is a little bit of a gap now that started to develop just with the crash that we saw and then the fighting that we're seeing in the leading groups.
Yeah, exactly. And Scott Swan was one of those guys maybe I expected a little bit more pace and testing than he did show. So it's great to see him now, obviously, like we said, a rider returning from last year and really right up in this fight now and made some good progress to get in this group at the front, which is now sort of there's 6 riders within 6/10 and then a bit of a half-second gap kind of back to those guys, but it really can change so quickly if these guys are going to block each other and slow each other down at the front. That can close so quickly, especially with the slipstream as well behind that big group punching the hole in the air.
You can see the 23 of Horseman just getting down the inside once again. He looks really strong in that run from Cops down in towards Maggots and Beckett's, but that's the section where you can try and use that toe. That's the section where you can try and make some moves. You can see the number 19 trying to take the long way around the outside down in towards Brooklands, but it's Scott Swan on the 20 that's ran in very hot. He's come from the back of that group to the front of the group, so Scott Swan on the number 20 machine. He had his best result of his season here last year at Silverstone, so he's just trying to hit the front once again there on the number 20, but still a long way to go in this race as well.
Yeah, I thought that was too hot, but it wasn't too hot. Nicely done that. And you did see him though run over a little bit of that green stuff. So we'll need to be careful with track limits. You can't sort of take that too far. Here we get a replay of this.
Yeah, you can see the number 20 of Scott Swan. He goes in a bit too hot. Usually if you try and dive down towards those inside apexes, it's just because you've gone in a bit too hot. And Scott Swan managing to get that bike stop, get it held up and still make the corner and take the lead. So good move there from Swan. And since we cut back to it, he's lost that lead. He's down into second spot now. But Rhys Irwin on the number 15, another Northern Irish rider, and he's trying to get himself through to the front of the group. So you can see there Charlie Farrar on the number 19, the oldest rider in the field, leading this race at the moment. But Scott Swan now coming under attack. It looked like it could have been from Ogden, maybe just down the inside now into Brooklands. Ogden back of this group, of course, pole sitter on the number 4 machine, and just not quite able to get himself into position to try and attack. But as you can see with all these riders at the front, all this fighting, all it's done is it's just brought that field back together. We've probably got a leading group of about 8 or 9 riders now.
Yeah, it looks like it's the top 8 now, and they've really pulled out quite a big gap from 9th downwards. And yeah, all again super close together, just under 9/10 separating them last time over the line. We'll see where it is now. So yeah, it's 1.1 seconds ish, so still pretty tight, and it's changing so quickly as they're making so many different moves at different points on the track, and just immediately, you know, that concertina effect, it can look like it's really pulled out again, and then suddenly it's all changed.
Yeah, and all change at the front. You can see there number 19 getting down the inside, but Scott Swan, he's making really aggressive moves through each of these sections of the lap. You can see he just hit that big bump as he came through the track joins down in towards the Wellington Straight. But for Scott Swan on that number 20, he's not afraid to try and get himself down the inside. He's not afraid to get his elbows out and be a little bit aggressive in some of these sections. But at the front of the field, still Charlie Farrar, the Sunderland native, out in front and still leading this race. But he's doing a good job just to be able to get himself back to the front of this group each time, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Cameron Horseman still in that group as well, and Scott Ogden, they seem to be very consistent. Obviously Scott Swan now seems pretty intent on getting his elbows out, and we're getting pretty close around there between those guys as well. Looks like Horseman's going to attack again to take that lead back. But yeah, some really aggressive moves from Scott Swan, and impressive because he's come from quite a way down the grid.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him up there in that front group. That's some good work from him.
Yeah, not afraid of each other at the front of this field. Scott Swan coming from the 5th row of the grid, as you said, Fran, but down in towards Maggots and Beckett. This is where we've seen Scott Swan try and make a move last time around. He goes around the outside. He's actually cut straight across on one of the other riders there, but Scott Swan able to make that move. It looked like it could have been Charlie Farrar on the number 19 that got caught a little bit tight there with Scott Swan and losing a bit of ground.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that was. I think it was, but losing out a lot of ground there, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's all change again, and it could be a good point now if Horseman thinks he's got the pace to pull that pin, because he does have a little bit of space there at the front now.
Yeah, it's hard to break away though in these British Talent Cup races.
It is, but we did see it a couple of times from Skinner last year especially, and if you can get in that rhythm, but it does look at the moment, especially with only one person, obviously Swan on the chase, it's a bit of a harder thing to do than if the guys behind are going to start fighting it out. That would give you more of an opportunity. You can see this big shuffle here.
Yeah, big shuffle. It was Scott Swan coming across in front of the number 19. And,
a little bit
Charlie
brutal,
Farrar
that one. A little bit brutal.
But in the British Talent Cup, all's fair in love and war and all's fair in racing. And at the front of the field, Scott Swan has been able to hold on to that second spot. So it's worked out okay for him. Charlie Farrar on the 19, he's got himself back up into third. But you can imagine that he's going to be taking a mental note of who it was that cut across him. Riders, of course, always with a very long memory for things like that. Short memory if it's their own mistake.
Of course, always.
But for all these riders at the front, now that they're starting to fight with one another, is that giving Horseman the chance to try and open up a bit of a lead? You can see just how easy it is to lose time whenever you're fighting like this.
Yeah, definitely. You can see all those guys already shuffling it out, but it doesn't look like there's been too much change to that gap at all, really. So Horseman, at this point at least, not really pulling that pin too much. But yeah, it really depends on what these guys are going to do, because that could quickly get a lot bigger, that gap, if they really do start sort of attacking each other like they did a second ago.
Yeah, you can see Rhys Irwin there on the number 15. He's been able to make another couple of moves on this lap to try and get himself up into the top 3. This is as good as we've seen from Rhys over the course of last season and this year. And on that number 15, he had a couple of top 10s last season, Fran, but really this season he's made a big step forward during the tests and clearly here in the races as well.
Yeah, he's one of those that is really impressed with that step forward, and Charlie Farrar as well. I say Farrar, I don't know if I should be saying Farrar. But yeah, some really important steps forward for some of these guys as they return this season. And yeah, I'm sure as well, like the likes of Horseman, where you kind of expected that step forward. Obviously, Seabright, unfortunately, we won't get to see him complete this race. But the likes of those guys as well, making good on that potential.
Yeah, Charlie Farrar a lot further up the field than he was last season. A couple of top 10 finishes though at Valencia and Assen. You can see though with this group now, they are starting to just stretch out a little bit. You can see it as the riders get into that line. It's always a little bit of an indication just that the pace has started to increase once again at the front of this field. But you can see here with number 9 trying to get down the inside, that's Brian Hart. And for Hart, is he going to be able to pick up a couple of spots there down the inside of Rhys Irwin? Rhys trying to run all the way around the outside in the number 15. That's the beauty here at Silverstone as well, Fran. Lots of different lines, and now in these final 6 or 7 laps, this is where all the time that you spend during this 28 lap race, this is where all the lessons really can start to come to good use.
Yeah, definitely. And if it comes to some aggression on the last lap, I'm sure Scott Swan will feel the most primed of anyone. But yeah, it should be a good, obviously so far it's been pretty frantic in there at times. Last lap looks like it's going to be fairly brutal, I think, from these guys.
And you can see down in towards Brooklands, Ogden trying to get down the inside in the number 4. Does he manage to hold that line? Looks like he's in it a little bit hot. He's going to leave himself open for attack down in towards Brooklands and in towards Luffield now for these riders. So Ogden on the number 4. He's lost a couple of spots after getting down the inside into Brooklands, but that's a good opportunity just to be able to try and learn whether or not you're able to actually try and make those moves down the inside. Brooklands, one of the key overtaking opportunities, probably the best overtaking opportunity on the lap, because from that you then set yourself up into quite a narrow line through the last corner of Luffield. So in a few laps time we get to the end of this race, that's going to be the real opportunity for all these riders to try and make some moves into Maggots and Beckett's as well. Fran, we've seen lots of moves on this section of the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, like you said at the start of the show, there's a good few places where you can make some good moves here on this layout, and certainly being taken advantage of by these guys. But at the moment, last time over the line, it was about 6 tenths from Horseman back to this group, but not really able to make it any bigger than that. that. So at the moment, it looks like if they can get the finger out a little bit and maybe stop having this battle, then he should be able to catch him again. He should be able to escape. Ogden certainly doing his best to try and get up there and be the man to chase him down.
Of course, tactics can go out the window pretty quickly whenever the red mist comes down. Ogden,
Exactly.
though, doing a good job in the number 4 just to get himself back to the front. He was the pole sitter. He's a top 5 place all the way through this weekend. But once you're into a race like this, it's really easy to lose out a bit of ground, to try and get yourself to the back of this group and then try and recover. That's why Ogden's actually done quite a good job to always stay in those leading positions. But looks like he's under attack now from Charlie Farrar down in towards Copse. Ogden able to hold on to that spot, but he's right there with Horseman now. Really good run through Copse for the number 4 machine of Ogden. Is he going to try and make the move down in towards Maggots and Beckett? Just duck out of the slipstream through this section of track. A little bit too far back, but at least now we can see that at the front of the field, these riders really are going to start to fight with one another. You can see with Ogden on the number 4 trying to carry that momentum all the way around the outside. He's right there with Horseman, right behind him as he comes down in towards Brooklands. This is the section of the track where the number 4 of Ogden's been really strong. Is he going to try and rehearse a move for the end of the race once again down in towards Brooklands? It doesn't break in too deep, so just bailing out of that a little bit. He's happy to sit in second spot at the moment, but once we're into these final 5 laps of the race, all these riders, they're all going to start to get that little bit more tense. You can see Irwin on the number 15 just getting himself down the inside there, and Irwin doing a really good job just to try and make his presence felt once again at the front of the field.
Yeah, definitely. And like we saw come up on the graphic just before, it was a whole half second in one lap that Ogden closed down Horseman, and it looks like he has made a leap for the lead. So we have a change in Cameron Horseman. I imagine that was a bit of a rude awakening after a few laps with a bit of fresh air to suddenly have the pack right behind him and on him again.
Yeah, 3.5 laps to go for these riders, and you can see there with Horseman on the 23, he's lost another spot. Irwin down the inside in towards Maggots and Beckett's. Irwin on that number 15, he wants to make sure that he's primed into the right position here to be able to attack on Ogden. And once you're into these final stages of the races, you don't want to have to try and make too many moves. It's such a short lap here at Silverstone. It's only 1.5 miles long, so it's easy for these final couple of laps just to tick off, and you can find yourself in the wrong spot at the wrong time. But at the front of the field, you can see there with Ogden, he's been able to just work his way through to get himself into the lead. The number 9 there of Brian Hart trying to do the same. He had a podium last year at Snetterton, and he's got the opportunity to try and stand on the rostrum once again today.
Yeah, I think Ogden seems to have made his decision that, right, okay, I'm going to get to the front now, playtime's over a little bit, but Horseman certainly doesn't seem eager to let him go at all. I think this is going to get pretty fruity. Coming down to the final couple of laps now, as we are, is it better to be leading or is it better to not be leading?
The playtime's just about to start here from then into the last 3 laps for all these riders, and you can see for Ogden on that number 4 machine, he wanted to make sure he would get himself to the front of this group. He wants to give himself the opportunity to lead this pack. All the rest of the riders, they're going to be jockeying for position. They're going to try and move themselves up into the front of this group. You can see everyone now really are starting to get their head down. They're all trying to make sure that they maximise everything, because with 2.5 laps to go, time really is starting to tick down here in the opening race of the 2019 season. You can see Ogden still out in front. The 23 though of Horseman, he's done a really good job all the way through this race to try and stay out of trouble and try and stay at the front of this field. And the same can be said for Brian Hart. Of course, Hart qualified on the second row of the grid, and he's just sort of stayed in contention all the way through this race. Once we're into these final stages, he started to pick off a couple of riders just to try and get himself through into the front of this group. You can see here with the number 23 trying to go around the outside, Cam Horseman. Is he going to be able to try and sweep across on Ogden down in towards Copse? Makes the move nice and early using that slipstream. There's a couple of places where you really can try and attack with that slipstream. The next spot is for Ogden to try and see if he's able to make a move down the inside into Maggots and Beckett's.
So we'll do a quick little look at the rookies at the moment just before we get back to what is surely going to be a crazy last lap. We have the top 9 of veterans before we get a few rookies in there. So that's a pretty solid job from those guys. There'll be some good points finishers for the newbies. Obviously, that kind of statistically has to be because we've got a lot of them, but they'll be pretty happy that they've not immediately sort of dropped into nowhere after some solid qualifying results. But this group at the front definitely stamping some authority on it from the veterans. And now we again have that front freight train of everyone really packed in tightly again as we get onto the final couple of laps.
Yeah, penultimate lap of the race for these riders. We saw Ogden try and just see if he was able to rehearse another move down in towards Brooklands. That's going to be his best overtaking opportunity of the lap, but he's close now to the race leader Horseman as we start the final lap here of the opening race of the 2019 British Talent Cup season. And the number 4 of Ogden gets down the inside into Cobbs. Is Horseman going to be able to carry that drive to try and attack down in towards Maggots and Beckett's? He's a bit further back than most of the riders we've seen try and make the move into this section, but using the slipstream 23, trying to get down the inside into Maggots, and he does take the lead here on the number 23 machine from Ogden. Ogden now needs to really maximise the exit here onto the Wellington straight, try and see if he can get close enough to try and attack down in towards Brooklands. Ogden right there in the slipstream, he's going to try and duck out to try and get down the inside of Horseman. Horseman's trying to take that defensive line on the run in towards Brooklands, but Ogden down the inside on the number 4. Is he going to be able to make this corner? It looks like he's in a little bit hot, but Ogden able to hold his line, and you can see the number 9 of Hart able to try and get around the outside of Horseman on the 23. Is Hart going to be close enough to try and use the slipstream to try and attack for the line? It looks like Ogden, the pole sitter, out in front at the moment, and the riders in second trying to attack one another, but Ogden trying to run for the line. Is Hart close enough to try and attack? It looks like Ogden should have been able to make it, but there wasn't too much in it. It looks like it could only be just by a bike length there for Ogden to take this victory on the number 4 machine, and the pole sitter converts the pole, but that really was a smart race to try and get himself to the front.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian Hart leaving that attack so late, absolutely picking the pocket, classic style of Cameron Horseman there. And over the line, it's Hart who's taken second by 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, Hart
so,
on that
very close.
Hart on that number 9 machine, of course. He's the highest returning rider from last season, finished in the top 6 in the championship last season, and that experience did help him quite a bit to get himself through into second spot. Horseman rounds out the podium in third spot on the number 23 machine, and Horseman did a really good job all the way through this race just to make sure he was consistently at the front of the field. But for Scott Ogden, he's been able to claim his first victory in the British Talent Cup, and he's thoroughly deserved it. Led all the way through winter testing in Valencia, pole position here at Silverstone, and now he's been able to convert it into his first victory in the British Talent Cup.